After the success of Toy Story, the whole world was eager to see what this new and creative studio had in store for us.
Papa, yeah.
So, being a ladybug automatically makes me a girl. Is that it, Flyboy? Huh?
Yikes, she's a guy!
Yeah, this movie was quite an experience. And the only reason I'm talking about this is because of how deep the visuals have ingrained into my childhood memories and will forever give me nightmares.
I am a cute little bumblebee.
Ah, it's so weird. Someone just make it stop. Now don't get me wrong, this movie is by no means bad. It's just okay. It's not offensive and is mildly entertaining at best. But when you look at Pixar's impressive list of movies from the 90s and 2000s, A Bug's Life isn't one of those movies that springs to mind. And this is because the movie is just so average and quite a step down from Toy Story. So I'm going to head straight into memory lane and see if A Bug's Life really is just a forgettable installment in Pixar's catalogue, or if it has in fact held the test of time. So the movie's about an ant that's disliked by the whole colony and must embark on a journey to find heroes who can help drive away the grasshoppers from tormenting them, thus making the ant a hero so he can get the girl, who is of course a princess. What an original story, guys. Now the movie itself is very loosely based on an Aesop's fable called The Ant and the Grasshopper, in which the grasshoppers dance and play throughout the summer while the ants collect and store food for the winter. Come winter, the starving grasshopper begs the ant for food but is refused. It's nothing like the fable, and I'm not sure why they thought a short fable would be a good idea for a feature length. Alright, so we begin in a field of grass. The ants climb up the grass in a synchronized fashion. Already they've got a lot wrong here. First of all, an ant trying to be weary of threats is just not real. They don't care if a bird is flying above them, they're just trying to collect food and simp for the queen ant for the rest of their lives. Well, they got the main character pretty accurate, to be fair. And also, why are the ants blue? I've never seen a blue ant. They're either black, red or yellow. This is what a blue ant looks like. And they still got it wrong. But apparently the animators redesigned the ants to make them look more cute and likeable. They're ants, guys, not puppies. What did you expect?
We are trained professionals. Now stay calm. We are going around the leaf.
Around the leaf?
Now this was quite a clever and humorous scene. It made fun of the situation while also portraying it as a typical workplace. They do this a lot in the movie, and that's especially unavoidable when we're introduced to Flick. He's the colony's eccentric inventor, an outcast, a weirdo, a fumbler, a lunatic. He is disliked by the whole colony apart from a girl who cares for him very deeply. Flick's clumsiness causes the ant's supply of food to fall off a cliff and into a puddle of water, and this is what ignites the conflict of the story. The grasshoppers arrive for their annual bullying session to scare the ants into giving them food. I'm not sure why it's grasshoppers. They're not particularly the scariest bugs, and they're also herbivores. The bugs that I find scary are the ones that turn out to be the heroes.
Are you saying I'm stupid? No. Do I look stupid to you? Let's just think about the logic, shall we? Let's just think about it for a second.
The grasshopper played by Richard Kind was perfect casting. His dim-witted nature adds a different side to the main villain and leader of grasshoppers, Hopper. Flick stands up to Hopper after he bullies Dot, a young ant and princess of the colony. Hopper subsequently doubles the compensation of food. So the ants must come up with a solution. And who better than the inventor himself? Flick suggests they need bigger bugs and embarks on a quest that will allow the ants to actually solve the problem realistically and keep him away from causing any trouble. I don't understand. Why did he stop? Ants can crawl up and down anything without falling off. No, really? Is this really necessary? This seems like a waste of time. I thought he was smart. How far does he even have to travel to find other bugs anyway? Bugs make up 80% of life on Earth. They're really trying to milk this adventure. We're already 20 minutes in and I'm not excited about any of it. The main plot is just a hero's journey arc. And if that's all this movie has to offer, then it's not going to be any good. Look at Star Wars. It also follows a simple hero's journey. But why are we so grabbed by its story? It's because the world constantly builds with deeper lore and offers countless obstacles to make the characters grow and change by the end of the movie. The complete opposite in A Bug's Life. They explore a New York-like bug city for 5 minutes and the rest of the movie is back at the colony. Let me think of a better example than Star Wars that's not so grand in action. Oh yeah, Finding Nemo. The adventure that Marlin is on is constantly growing with exciting new obstacles. It's always on the move, but the main objective of finding his son remains the main plot. With A Bug's Life, the obstacles that Flick faces are just not as exciting. The objective can be as plain and simple as ever, but whatever happens in between point A and point B is where the meat of the story is dependent on. In Star Wars, both the viewer and Luke Skywalker are heading into to an unknown fate, and the villain Darth Vader has an extremely ominous presence. A Bug's Life's villain is Kevin Spacey, which doesn't get any more ominous, but they still mess it up because he's not really in it that much. So Flick manages to find the ideal bugs capable of fighting off grasshoppers. You got a spider, a beetle, and a mantis to name a few, but there's one problem. These bugs are a group of circus performers. You heard me right, they are of the arts and are looking for a new gig after being fired. Miscommunication is what leads them to agree and help Flick, believing it to be a performance. It was a shame to see them leave this city in the garden of some guy's caravan. There were some really amusing scenes like having a hostile bar in an empty can. I just wish they explored this angle of the story more, but I guess the grasshopper plot is what we're all eager to see. Alright, so let's get to know about a couple of these warrior bugs. I really liked the Stickman. It was very easy to sympathise with him, and his dry humour attached with his appearance made him a standout character. The Caterpillar, on the other hand...
I am a cute little bumblebee!
Yeah, I don't know what to say. When you're trying to make a character funny just based on an accent, it just comes off as lazy and ignorant. It's an insult to the people of Germany. It was like watching a German Pee-wee impression. Anyway, this annoying fat caterpillar dreams of being a butterfly. A caterpillar hoping to transform into something that's part of the natural cycle. Wow, what a stretch. That's not really a dream, that's just a fact. The dream is a rat wanting to be a chef. Thank goodness Pixar get better after this. Flick returns to the island with the warriors or circus bugs. The ants are all surprised that Flick was successful. During a play by the ant kids, the circus bugs quickly find out, through a rather graphic depiction I might add, that they were actually brought to the island to kill the grasshoppers. They leave without hesitation. We see how desperate Flick is when he clings onto the Stickman, and they find themselves in grave danger when they encounter a nest of bird eggs. A newly hatched bird attacks them, and this forces the plot in a healthy way to reveal how the circus bugs will react in front of Princess Atta and the rest of the ants. Francis the ladybug heroically saves Dot from being eaten, and the rest of the circus bugs cleverly deceive the bird while also still managing to deceive the ants from knowing their real identity. It was the first real exciting sequence of the movie since the grasshopper's introduction. The montage of them building the puppet bird was the most cop-out way of them adding unnecessary time to a movie that didn't really need to be 90 minutes long. They show everyone getting along and lazily develop the romantic plot between Flick and Princess Atta. The only scene that best showed their chemistry was when Atta confessed her anxiety about what other ants think of her, and Flick realises they are both trying to prove themselves to the colony in their own way. So we're halfway through this, and I think to myself, this isn't really as bad as I'm making it out. There's nothing that bad about it, the pacing is quite fast and always on the move, but I'm also not that eager to know what happens. The movie has a lot going for it in terms of animation, music and voice acting. It's the story that's really dragging this from being as memorable as the likes of Toy Story and Monsters Inc. They have an emotional weight that A Bug's Life is seriously lacking, and why I don't particularly care about what's going on. So being mildly entertaining is not good enough because it doesn't have an everlasting effect on you. It's no different to a commercial. I know no one really likes commercials, but give me this chance to sound like I know what I'm talking about. It's 30 seconds of music and popping visuals that keep you amused, and when it's over you suddenly forget about it and move on without really thinking about it. That's the impression I get when watching A Bug's Life. It's not bad, there's not much to criticise from an entertainment point of view, which is a good thing when you consider that a film's #1 purpose is to entertain. I even feel guilty criticising this movie in the first place. I should really be venting my frustration at Shark Tale or Toy Story 4. But would I ever go back to watch A Bug's Life again? Probably not, and that's a concern about the legacy of this movie. So the circus bugs and the ants manage to work together and grow closer as they build a puppet bird to deceive Hopper and hopefully drive the grasshoppers out of their colony. But just as everything seems to be going perfect for Flick, his fabricated world of bliss is shattered when the flea arrives in search of his performers, the circus bugs. He hits rock bottom and is once again forced to make a decision, but only when he is swayed by Dot. This relationship they have is nice, but again, I never felt myself really saying, "Come on Flick, you've got to get back on your feet and stop the grasshoppers." I should really be feeling sorry for Flick. Everything he's done has been to help the colony, but he's seen as someone who's selfish and looking for glory. Maybe they could have had Flick really break down in front of the circus bugs about how he feels being a black sheep. We don't really get to explore the mental state of Flick. In Toy Story, we see Buzz Lightyear go through depression when he realises he's just a toy. It doesn't have to be anything deep, but it does add depth to the character. I know that grasshoppers aren't the scariest of creatures, in fact far from it, but the sound design of them hovering over the colony and appearing through the mist really sets a tense and dreading atmosphere. So thanks to the encouragement of Dot and the circus bugs, Flick finds the motivation to go ahead with the puppet bird plan. The circus bugs give him time to get it ready by hosting a performance in front of the grasshoppers. I'm not sure why they've made these grasshoppers so intimidating. A praying mantis is one of the most deadliest bugs in the world, and it's twice as big as a grasshopper. It all goes to plan before the flea messes it up again. You know what? This flea has just been the biggest red button plot device. It's funny how one tiny flea can change the direction of a whole movie, but he's done it twice now. So what happens now is Flick gets mad and stands up to the grasshopper and explains that grasshoppers are dependent on ants, making them the strongest species. And as a result, the ants all get fired up and attack the grasshoppers, who flee at once. I mean, the theme of bullying is quite evident in this movie, but I didn't think the way they would all stand up to them was just by straight up attacking them. What drove them to have this sense of violence now? One speech was enough to make all the ants go Braveheart. It just didn't work for me. A really cool sequence with rain was an excellent piece of animation, but the scene itself was one that I was not particularly invested in. Even though the visuals were amazing, the scene just played out like a typical action movie, which isn't always the best way to resolve the conflict between the villain and the hero. Because it's based on an Aesop's fable, I would have thought Flick would make Hopper realise that he should learn to not waste his time gallivanting and depending on others for survival, and actually make an effort to put in the work himself, which would have been a better way than just having him being eaten by birds, which was foreshadowed throughout the movie, but still, how is Hopper going to learn his lesson now? So the big question that I have to ask is, did this short tale about a grasshopper and an ant make a good case to be adapted into a movie?
Come on, you can rub lotion on me later, Shade Boy.
Yeah, hubba hubba.
No, I don't think it did. The end of this movie left me kind of lukewarm. There's a lot I like in this movie. Most of the humour was pretty good, and then there was stuff like the caterpillar, which I found really obnoxious. The end credit bloopers were probably the funniest part of the movie, even though it wasn't actually part of the story. A Bug's Life will unfortunately be looked at as one of Pixar's weakest entries of that successful period. Right now it probably ranks somewhere in the middle due to the massive decline of Pixar in recent years. If the film was able to channel more emotion into the story and characters, I feel that this would be remembered with great amount of sentiment. But at this moment, A Bug's Life is a fine movie, but also quite average and quite forgettable.